This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
Oh, what an attack! Oh, what a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
It's a Hump Day Wednesday here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig hanging out with you. Of course, PlaySugarHouse.com. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. Wednesdays means it's a Weinberg Wednesday. Dave Weinberg, veteran Eagles writer, will join us coming up 6:15. We'll get into the Eagles. Also, his perspective on the upset over the weekend. Vasily Lomachenko loses. Lopez, the champ. What does that mean for boxing? So we got to get to with Dave Weinberg coming up about 13 minutes from now. Of course, the Eagles back in action tomorrow night here on 97.3 ESPN. Eagles versus Giants. And as we prepare for the game tomorrow night, there's a lot of things that you got to keep an eye on. First and foremost, the news that happened with the Eagles today. Just to give you a little recap of the series of events, the Eagles have released Javon Brown. Matt Pryor is being activated off the COVID list. Doug Peterson says he expects Lane Johnson and Deshaun Jackson back on the field on Thursday night. All great news. But you know what I'm actually more interested in? You know what storyline I'm actually a little bit more intrigued by? Avonte Maddox is returning for the Eagles defense. He's at least expected to. If Avonte Maddox is back, first of all, it allows the Eagles to go back to their plan originally all along, defensively, which is Maddox and Slay on the outside. You have your three safeties, Jalen Mills, Will Parks, Rodney McLeod, Nickel Roby-Coleman in the slot. So you'll be much more equipped defensively. And you may say, well, what does that matter? You're going against the Giants. Well, the Giants do have some weapons. And the Giants have a mobile quarterback, and if Darius Slayton comes back, they have a speed receiver. Well, you just went against a team that has the better version of what the Giants bring to the table. So the Eagles are getting healthier on defense, and they're facing a team that has some similarities offensively to what they're going to see. And that's something that I would keep a very close eye on tomorrow night, because if Avonte Maddox does come back and Darius Slayton is still good to go, is it Slayton versus Slay? And then does Avonte Maddox take the other side? What do the Eagles do at safety with all three of those guys back and everything fully accommodated for? It'll be a great opportunity for the Eagles to also use the Giants game to prepare for the Cowboys game, because even though the Cowboys look like just a total dumpster fire on Monday Night Football, the Cowboys still have Elliott, they still have Lamb and Cooper and Gallup. They still have offensive weapons you have to guard. And their offensive line may be healthier in 2 weeks than they are right now. We know that Zach Martin went down with a concussion. We know that Tyron Smith, he's pretty much, looks like he's done for the year. But the Cowboys still could get Zach Martin back. They could get Connor Williams back. They could get some of those other guys back and healthy and ready to go. They were basically playing with all backups on Monday night. So they may have some of their guys return at least in time for the Eagles game. So you have to prepare these next two games because they're not just must-wins. They're opportunities for you to build a winning streak and build some positive vibes going into the bye week, because you don't want to go into the bye week with one or two wins. You want to go in there with a two-game winning streak. You want to go in there with some confidence. You want to go in there knowing that you've taken a hold of the NFC East, arguably one of the worst divisions in all of NFL history. You want to take a hold of that division and just let the entire rivals, all your rivals, you want them all know, we're not letting up. There should be no point in time the next two games where the Eagles, if Lane Johnson and Deshaun Jackson are 80% of what they can be, and if Avonte Maddox is 90% of what he can be, there's no way the Eagles lose those games. Because the Eagles, at this point in time, are just better football team. Straight up. Think about it this way. Without Dak Prescott, the Cowboys, I mean, come on. It's Andy Dalton. The drop-off from Dak Prescott to Andy Dalton is much more than I think people were willing to give Dak credit for. I think part of that might have been because there's a little bit of a bias for some people against Dak. Maybe it was because people assumed that Ezekiel Elliott can still play well, whether Dak's in the lineup or not. I'm not fully sure what the reason was. But it's obvious now, watching at least a game and a half of Andy Dalton, well, a game and a quarter of Andy Dalton in a Cowboys uniform, that there is a legitimate drop-off. Right now, the Eagles have the best quarterback in the division. If the Eagles get some of their offensive line back, the offensive line actually may be the best in the division, straight up. I'm saying that with Mailata staying a left tackle, too, because Mailata at least is athletic enough to make up for some of his mistakes, and he's a clean slate. He came into the NFL never playing football in his life. So at least he can go out there, and if he makes a mistake, you could tell him what to do, and he's not going to have some counterintuitive programming to go against it in his mind from when he was in high school when he had a bad coach or some weird scenario like that. You cut Javon Brown, so you don't have to worry about that fiasco anymore. You could argue the Eagles are the best offensive line. Defensive line, the Eagles are in the conversation. I think that Washington's defensive front may be at least on par or better than what the Eagles bring to the table. The Eagles obviously are the worst linebackers. But if everyone is healthy between Maddox and Roby Coleman and Mills and Parks and McLeod and Slay, their secondary is definitely better than Dallas. Their secondary, I would argue, is better than the Giants. And for Washington, okay, I mean, I personally would take the Eagles secondary over Washington secondary, but that's just my personal preference. So realistically, from top to bottom, outside of linebacker and wide receiver, which I think anybody in the right mind would say the Cowboys have the best receiving core in the NFC East, the Eagles have the better group of players at almost every single position group. So why can't they win the division? And I know ESPN's FPI ran 20,000 simulations. They went out there and they said, hey, guess what? The Eagles are most likely to win the division 6-9-1. If you're going to hold a record of 6-9-1 against an Eagles team with this many injuries in a pandemic year where half the world has their entire lives turned on their heads, and an NFC East that realistically is just a total mess, in an NFL that has been at times extremely unpredictable. I mean, come on. If you were the person who had the bet that Dan Quinn and Bill O'Brien would be out before week 7 of the NFL season, you're either the smartest person alive or you're the richest person alive. Aside from that person, nobody thought that those guys were getting fired this early in the year. So in a year of unpredictability and of injuries and of chaos, and you win the division, I don't care what your record is. I give you credit for it. And you can't call yourself a real Eagles fan if you're going to jump up and say, well, I'm not watching them, or I'm not going to root for my team if they make the playoffs with a 6-9-1 record. You're full of it. Because you're going to sit down like everybody else and root for the team and be excited. And guess what? The last 2 times that teams won their division with losing records, 2014 Panthers and the 2010 Seahawks, they won their wild card games and they went on to the second round. And at that point, you might just have to give Doug Peterson the coach of the year, to the chagrin of some other Eagle fans who just can't ever say anything good about Doug. I'm not saying you can't criticize Doug and Jim Schwartz and all these guys, but we've gotten to the point where we act like Doug is the dumbest coach in the league, Jim Schwartz is the worst defensive coordinator, and Carson Wentz is the bum. And none of those descriptions are true at all. Is Carson Wentz stubborn at times? Absolutely. Did you see him stare down receivers a couple times in the game on Sunday? He does it every game. He stares down receivers. He doesn't check the whole field. He doesn't scan at times. He zeroes in on a play. He tries to force the ball into a location. He fumbled the ball again last week. He's stubborn at times. It doesn't make him a horrible quarterback. Of all the healthy quarterbacks, he's the best quarterback in the division. And if you're going to take Daniel Jones, Andy Dalton, or any of the three quarterbacks in Washington of Carson Wentz, you and I need to have a conversation about how you're doing today, because I'm a little worried about your sanity. Doug Peterson has won a Super Bowl, and he's gotten his team back to the playoffs every year since, despite all the injuries. Yeah, he's not the most fluid speaker. He's not going to win the press conference, but he wins you football games, and the guys play hard for him. You know, Mike McCarthy won a Super Bowl. It looks like the players quit on him in Dallas. And Jim Schwartz, come on. You really going to tell me that Jim Schwartz isn't a better defense coordinator than Mike Nolan? You know, the Mike Nolan whose defense is the worst in the division? If you want to say Jack Del Rio is a better D coordinator, all right, I'm not going to argue with you about it. Okay, so Jim Schwartz is the second best D coordinator in the division. Doesn't make him the worst defensive coordinator in the NFL. This Eagles team may not win pretty, but the only thing that matters at the end of the day is winning, is it not? You play to win the game. We heard that 100 times on YouTube and all kinds of different outlets over the years from Herb Edwards. Well, if the Eagles win the division, isn't that really what the goal is at the beginning of the year anyway? PlaySugarHouse.com. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. To get on the conversation, 609-403-0973. It's Weinberg Wednesday. Dave Weinberg joins the show coming up next here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the free 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Of course, it's Wednesday. That means it's a Weinberg Wednesday. Dave Weinberg joins us each and every Wednesday. We'll talk some Eagles. Also talk a little boxing. Loma Lopez. Interesting fight Saturday night. Of course, Dave Weinberg, veteran Eagles beat writer, Hall of Fame boxing writer. You check out his work over at 97.3 ESPN.com, his extra point columns. And he joins us right now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Dave, how's Wednesday treating you?
Very good. Another beach day, so all's good.
Nothing wrong with that. So, a lot of Eagles news. They seem to never keep themselves out of the news cycle, despite the fact that the NFC East is a dumpster fire. But Philadelphia Eagles are finding ways to keep things interesting. I want to start with the game on Sunday because one of my big takeaways is this is now 2 straight weeks the Eagles have scored now. Actually, 3 straight weeks. They've scored about 25 or more points in each game. Are you encouraged at all by what you've seen from the offense, or are you still frustrated, or are you still finding things that you say they need to do a lot better at things?
Yeah, I guess a little bit encouraged, although the offensive line has really needs some work. I mean, Carson Wentz got his butt kicked for most of the game, and that's not going to be good for the rest of the season. He can't keep taking that kind of punishment and expect to stay in the lineup. Yeah, but, you know, they did put some points on the board, you're right, and kept it. They had a nice rally in the fourth quarter, although my argument would be the rally wouldn't be necessary if you didn't stink it up for the first half. So I guess it's good and bad you can take from it.
Yeah, Wentz still has those moments. You know, you watch him, and I want to throw something at the television. I'm like, why are you staring down a receiver? He still has this stubborn, bad habit of not always scanning the field. But it's amazing when he does scan the field, he makes some pretty good plays. And I think at the end of the day, you know, whether people want to admit it or not, you know, with Dak Prescott injured, Wentz is now the best quarterback left standing in the division as of right now.
Yeah, you're probably right. Although I don't know, that's kind of like faint praise. But yeah, but he still has his moments where he makes some good throws, and he took the team. He did a great job of rallying the team in the fourth quarter on Sunday. But I'm not ready to think that he's back to being the elite quarterback he was a few years ago, though. And another turnover that was really costly in the first half. I know people say he didn't throw any interceptions, but there were a couple that were kind of pretty much dropped by Ravens defenders. So he, like the rest of the team, he still has some work to do to get the team where they need to be.
You mentioned the offensive line. The Eagles released Javon Brown today. They're activating Matt
Thank
Pryor.
God.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, he was horrible. I mean,
I've never seen an offensive lineman sack his own quarterback before. That was a new one.
I mean, he's got to be the worst offensive lineman for the Eagles since what? King Dunlap or Winston Justice?
Yeah, I'd go back maybe to Antone Davis or something like that. He was awful.
So they got rid of Brown. They got Pryor. Looks like he's gonna at least be good to go for Thursday night, whatever that's worth. Lane Johnson, Doug Peterson expects to be back. So at least there's some reinforcements coming back for the offensive line, which is important because the Eagles, Dave, really need to win these next two games if they have any hope of winning this division and getting to the postseason.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I was just thinking about that today, where I don't see them winning another game out of their division. I just think the schedule is just too tough for them to expect to make any headway against the other teams. But if they can go 5-0 or 4-1 in the NFC East, that might be enough 5 or 6 wins might be enough to win that division. But you're right. So the next 2 games against the Giants and Cowboys, those are pivotal games that they really need to win if they want to win the NFC East.
Oh, it's okay. It's a Freudian slip. It's a pitiful matchup in a pivotal game. So.
Yeah, there you go. I had both on my mind there.
Dave Weinberg joining me here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Make sure you follow on Twitter at Dave Weinberg19. Speaking of pitiful, we should note, though, that, Dave, the last 2 times teams won a division with a losing record, it was the Carolina Panthers in 2014 and then the Seahawks in 2010. Both those teams won their wild card game. So getting in with a losing record isn't just a recipe for a disaster. It might be a recipe for some bizarre magic at the end of the day.
Yeah, normally you'd be right there. And, if the Eagles do win the East, they get a home game for the first round. But I don't think, unless they can get healthier and a little more consistent, if they gain some momentum, which Doug has been known to do, he seems he has the knack for getting the team to hit its stride late in the season. So if they can do that, then maybe, who knows, they can pull off a first-round upset. But as of now, I don't see it happening.
By the way, a little factoid for you, Dave. The NFC East has 5 total wins after 6 weeks. The last time that happened in the NFL was 1984. It was the AFC Central. That year, the Steelers won the division, but the rest of the division included an Oilers team that started 0-10. So at least this NFC East is not the first time this ever happened in football.
Yeah, I guess there is some precedent for it. Although the NFC East is, they're known as a pretty competitive division. So it surprises me that that division would be so bad. Every team is pretty much in the bottom third of the league, and it's like surprising me because when you look back over the years of the epic NFC East battles between the Eagles and the Cowboys, Giants and Cowboys, and what have you, it has a reputation for being a tough but successful division. And so to see all 4 franchises falling on hard times like this, it's kind of surprising.
Yeah, it's like Gary Myers told me yesterday here on Game Night. He said that we're a far ways removed from the era of Landry and Gibbs and Parcells and Ryan, that's for sure.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
So speaking of the NFC East, tomorrow night, of course, the Eagles play the Giants. What are some of the things you're looking for in that game, Dave?
Oh, boy. Well, the Eagles should try to run the ball, although I don't know if they're going to be that successful at it without Miles Sanders. Giants' run defense is pretty decent, so I'm kind of expecting Doug to abandon it relatively early, as he usually does anyway. So I guess we're just going to have to hope that Travis Fulgham can work his magic again. It'd be nice if Deshaun Jackson comes back and at least plays a limited role. Maybe it'll take some pressure off some of the younger guys that have been forced to step up here. So that'll be good. And it'll be interesting to see, Lane Johnson, I know he's going to be back, but I don't know for how long. He's been struggling with this ankle injury for quite some time now. So, I don't think I think it's really optimistic to expect him to finish the entire game. Defensively, though, it really comes down to the front 4 and putting pressure on Daniel Jones. Because the Eagles, the Giants don't have much. They don't have any running game either. So if they can force Jones to make some mistakes, which he's been known to do, I think that'll be a key component for an Eagles win tomorrow night.
You mentioned Daniel Jones. Jim Schwartz talked about this week about the fact that Jones is actually their leading rusher. because they're without Saquon Barkley. And a part of me almost wondered, did the Ravens offense with a quarterback who can run and the speed receivers, does that almost like prepare them for a Giants team with a mobile quarterback and with a speed receiver like Darius Slayton, who's expected to be back for Thursday night?
Yeah, I guess in a way it probably does, although I would think Lamar Jackson and Daniel Jones, that's a pretty big gap there. I mean, Jackson's a special kind of player who has the speed that
right. It's a huge gap, yeah. I'm just saying it's the style of what they're going up against.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah, like you said, Jones is a mobile guy. So you would think playing that same kind of, I guess, style 2 weeks in a row, that can only help, especially in a short week where they really don't have a whole lot of time to prepare. But the fact that they're somewhat familiar with that brand of offense should help them, I would think.
Also, Jim talked about the fact that, he wouldn't come out and straight up and say it, but he says that, he does expect there to be some similarities between what Jason Garrett and Colombo, the offensive line coach, did in Dallas and what they're doing in New York. So, I mean, is it fair to believe that the Eagles should win on Thursday night?
You would think so, but I'm just not ready to put that much faith in the Eagles right now. They have yet to show me that they're capable of winning the games they're supposed to win. I don't know if there's any games they're supposed to win, but I know they are favored. But they seem to have the Giants' number recently. I think they beat them like 6 of the last 7 times. Doug Peterson's 4-0 on Thursday Night Football since taking over as Eagles coach. They're wearing their all-black uniforms, whatever that means. So, I guess they should win, but I don't know about that 4.5-point spread. I think they might just maybe win it on a field goal at the end.
All right, Dave Weinberg giving out betting advice here on Weinberg Wednesday here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, Eagles, Giants tomorrow night, Thursday football. Folks can hear it right here on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 7 o'clock. Dave, another big thing over the weekend was Loma Lopez, a fight that I think most people thought it didn't go the way they expected, but you got to give Lopez credit. He came in there with a game plan. I mean, I'm not the boxing aficionado that you are, but from my 2 eyes, I'm looking at Lopez and I'm thinking one guy came to the fight for a fight and the other guy came to the fight and didn't get started.
Yeah, I was really baffled by Lomachenko's strategy there. I mean, he basically gave away the first 7 rounds. Didn't do anything. I don't think he threw a punch in the first round. And I understand, feeling out your opponent, but to keep doing it for the whole first half of the fight, that just made no sense to me at all. I don't know if he was waiting for Lopez to punch himself out or he had some sort of strategy that just never materialized. But, I mean, Loma showed his talent. He showed why he was considered by a lot of people as the best pound-for-pound guy in the sports, but in the last half of the fight. But he waited way too long. And all credit to Lopez. I mean, he had that strategy and executed it to perfection. And so congratulations to him. I mean, he fought a fantastic fight and got the winner's result. Although that 119-109 score is a disgrace.
Yeah, I don't understand what some of these judges are looking at. I mean, you and I have talked about that before about these. I feel like some of these judges need to be penalized a little bit more than they actually are. Like, how else are you going to make sure these weird scores or these horrible scores don't happen anymore if you don't punish these judges somehow?
That's true. I mean, back in a few years back when Aaron Davis was the commissioner in New Jersey, he actually suspended 3 guys for this outrageous score that they made with the Paul Williams-Landy Lara fight, where Lara clearly won, but Williams either got a draw or got the decision. I forget what it was, but Davis was so incensed that he actually suspended all 3 guys for, I don't know, I want to say like 6 months or more. So, yeah, maybe if more people do that. I know that Larry Hazard has a reputation for he won't necessarily suspend the guy, but he'll put him on the back burner. I mean, he won't use him in anything more than maybe undercard fights for a little while. As I guess a form of punishment, and that needs to happen more often because there's some judges out there that are really struggling to justify their status there.
Yeah. Now, so the big question from here, Dave, is a lot of people always wonder, okay, after a big fight, what is next? Because there's so much buildup for a fight, like Fury Wilder. There's all this buildup, but then there's like a letdown after it's done. I almost feel like there's a little letdown with Loma Lopez. Like, what really is next for these guys? I know Loma's having surgery. Lopez, who really knows what he wants to do next, right?
Yeah, there's talk about it moving up to 140, but I would love to see a rematch there. As long for it's going to take a little while, like you mentioned, but I would love to see those two guys go at it again. I mean, they're clearly the two best lightweights out there, and from a selfish perspective, I would love to see it in Atlantic City. Lopez being from Brooklyn, that would make it a terrific draw for the Boardwalk. Although we would have to wait until fans are allowed in.
Now, what is the next big fight of the year? Because I know that Crawford is supposed to fight soon, correct? I think he's fighting Kell Brook.
That, to be honest with you, I'm not real sure, but that would be a decent fight. Although, I mean, Crawford might be the best in the world now that Loma got beat. Although I guess you got to put Lopez in there too. But yeah, I mean, I gotta say the sanctioning bodies and the promoters and stuff have done a really good job of filling the schedule for the rest of the year. But yeah, I'm waiting to see Wilder and Fury fight again, whenever that's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm reading right here. Crawford's next fight will be against Kell Brook, and it'll be in November on ESPN. So I did remember that correctly.
Oh, okay, very good.
So does that count as the next big fight, or are we looking more so, as you mentioned, the Fury and Wilder stuff would be the next big item at this point?
Yeah, I mean, there's no really like mega fight out there. I mean, Loma and Lopez is probably as close as you're going to get. But even like the casual fan, I don't think they really knew who those guys are. But you're talking about like drawing power and popularity among the casual fan. The heavyweight division is probably where it's at, and the fact that the Wilder and Fury have already fought and drawn so much interest that I think that's probably the fight that people really want to see. I'm speaking both of experts and just casual people as well.
Dave Weinberg here on Weinberg Wednesday. Follow him on Twitter at Dave Weinberg19. Joins us each week here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Dave, I know you're a huge baseball guy. How do you feel about this World Series, Dodgers and Rays?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's assuming that the Dodgers are just going to roll over them. I'm not so sure about that. I think that the Rays, they had the best record in the American League, so they definitely deserve to be there. I guess you got to give the Dodgers the edge, obviously, based on what happened last night. But I think the Rays are going to make a series out of this.
What do you think it's going to go, like 6-7 games? Because my original prediction was Dodgers in 7. But I also thought that the Dodgers were going to lose the game last night, so what do I know? Yeah,
that's true. I mean, Clayton Kershaw hasn't done anything to instill any sort of confidence until last night. But he pitched a great game yesterday, so more credit to him. But excuse me, I think 6 or 7 is probably fair.
Now, with that being said, if whoever wins this series doesn't really matter, though, because the 2020 season was so topsy-turvy. I mean, how do we feel about a baseball season that has had everything happen this year? I mean, you're a traditional baseball guy, Dave. So, do you feel like the winner of this World Series, is it a greater achievement? Is it a lesser achievement? How do you feel about the World Series? Because some people were arguing, with the NBA and the NHL, well, they won in a bubble. Is it really the same? Was it harder? How do you feel about baseball in their situation?
Lesser achievement. I mean, there wasn't the grind of 162 games. Teams are unable to build off a home field advantage. Like in baseball, that means a lot, I think. And to have that in Texas for their World Series kind of takes some of the excitement away from it. I guess you can argue, though, that the fact that it's a neutral site, neither team has that huge edge. But I don't know. It just doesn't seem to have the same kind of juice that like a normal season has. I mean, a normal World Series has. I mean, the pageantry and the excitement. I really missed, and my wife missed, just seeing the players get introduced. They run out of dugout onto the base path and stuff, and it just doesn't seem to have the same kind of electricity. I mean, I'll watch it because I'm a baseball guy, like you said, but I think it's probably losing a lot of casual fans because of the way the season went.
Well, they say Game 1 was the least watched World Series game since the last time the Rays were in the World Series against the Phillies. So maybe some of it also has to do with the participants as well, because let's be realistic, Tampa's not exactly a hotbed for baseball fandom.
Yeah, that's true. I did find it interesting. Somebody pointed out that whoever wins this, they'll give their city their second championship this year.
Yep,
right?
that's correct.
LA and Tampa, so that's kind of cool.
I was telling the guys earlier today, Hunter Brody and Mike Gill on the Sports Bash, I think more people show up for Lightning games in hockey than they do for Rays games in baseball, though. So I think it's a little bit.
I don't know if you've ever been to Tampa's field. It's terrible. Oh, my gosh.
It's a dump.
Tropicana Field with the roof and the foul balls hitting off the ceiling. It's awful. That's an awful place to watch a game.
It's also located in a weird, bad part of town, too, so it doesn't help either.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't want to mention the strip clubs that are nearby, but there are a couple.
With that being said, he's Dave Weinberg. You can follow him on Twitter at Dave Weinberg 19. Joins us each week for a Weinberg Wednesday here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Check out his extra point columns over at 97.3 ESPN.com. As all guests, he appeared here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Dave, always appreciate the time and the conversation.
Oh, thanks very much. I appreciate it as always. Talk to you next week.
Sounds like a plan. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, being brought to you by GMS Law. Make the right call with 4 convenient locations to serve you. Visit them online at gmslaw.com. 609-403-0973 for the PlaySugarHouse.com. Text board 609-403-0973 to get on the conversation here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and the free 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
609-403-0973 for the PlaySugarHouse.com text board. PlaySugarHouse.com, where you can place your legal sports bets. Sign up now and then match your first deposit up to $250. Must be 21 in order to play. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 609-403-0973 to play for the PlaySugarHouse.com text board. Always thanks again, Dave Weinberg, for his insights each and every week here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird week because with the Eagles playing on Thursday night, it kind of throws a lot of the conventional setup of the week into chaos. Doug Peterson spoke today, the media this morning. They come out with an injury report earlier in the day. You can check out the full injury report over at 973ESPN.com and all the details of what Doug told the media today. But one of the things, like I said earlier, I took away from the injury report, aside from the fact that, they released Javon Brown and all that stuff, Matt Pryor's being activated from the COVID-19 list. For those who don't know, he did not have COVID, but he was near someone who had contracted COVID. So it was a precautionary isolating himself and keeping him away from the team and the organization. No one else got COVID potentially, but he has had basically you have to have a certain number of days you have to be on the list. And then after those days are finished up, you have to have multiple consecutive negative tests in a row. So then you're allowed to be taken off the COVID list. So that's pretty much how it works. And Matt Pryor, if he is available, he should be able to play tomorrow night, which is, I believe, the hope of a lot of people, and that's pretty crazy we're saying that because of how bad Javon Brown played. The players who have been ruled out for Thursday night include Jack Driscoll, Zach Ertz, Malik Jackson, Miles Sanders, and Alshon Jeffrey, along with Kayvon Wallace, have all been ruled out for tomorrow night's game. Now, we knew a lot about Ertz, Sanders, and Driscoll. We knew they would be ruled out. Kayvon Wallace, they'll be okay without him, mostly because of the fact that they have their main 3 safeties back already. As I mentioned earlier in the show, with Will Parks, Jalen Mills, and Roddy McLeod, that was the 3 safety you wanted to start the season with. But because of Will Parks' injury, they couldn't go with the original plan. Since the expectation is that Avonte Maddox is back, this will be the first time the Eagles secondary will all have their primary starting players all on the field. Because the main group of secondary players you were supposed to start the year with was Avonte Maddox and Darius Slay on the outside, Nikel Roby-Coleman in the slot corner, and then your three safeties in some combination would be Rodney McLeod, Will Parks, and Jalen Mills. The idea for Will Parks is he would be kind of used as like that box safety, and then Rodney McLeod would still be captaining the secondary, and Jalen Mills would kind of be a basically a Swiss Army knife. You know, one of those guys who kind of is used anywhere in the lineup. And now you get to finally have them all together on Thursday night. The name that stands out still, and this is something I was talked about earlier today on the Sports Bash, and we can't talk about this enough, in my opinion. Alshon Jeffrey has been ruled out with a calf/foot. This is getting ridiculous. And I understand there's some probably bigger reason why we are in the situation we are right now with Alshon Jeffrey. But this is starting to feel like an individual who is just more trouble than he's worth right now. He had the Liz Frank injury back in December, and that's usually a 9 to 12 month recovery. But the Eagles put him on the active roster day one after training camp. He's been on the active 53-man roster. He's never gone on the injured reserve. He's never been put on the PUP this year. So he's been technically available every week. And we understood that, okay, maybe he might not be around for the first 4 weeks because of the foot injury. But at the same point, you thought, well, why didn't you put on the short-term IR and then just bring him off whenever he's ready, right? But fine, you know, he's practicing, and we're all talking about it here on 97.3 ESPN. We're all writing about it at 97.3ESPN.com about how, look at Alshon Jeffrey, you know, he's running around. We got video of him making catches, making cuts, doing this, doing that. And then the first week he's back, you're like, all right, well, you know, maybe he's not ready to go week one, right? Maybe he's not ready for week one. But then the next week he's got an illness. All right. Okay, maybe he got a stomach bug, or you know, maybe he's got something. You know, it's not COVID related, so you know, just get better soon, Alshon, right? And then it's something else, and then it's something else, and now it's a calf. So, is Alshon Jeffrey ever going to play a game in the Eagles uniform ever again? What is going on with this guy? I mean, at least Jason Peters, we know that guy's body's falling apart, and that's why he's not playing. But Alshon Jeffrey, this is a guy who played through a shoulder injury to help you win a Super Bowl. He's a guy who's known to play through pain. He's a guy who's known to be one of those players that you say, even if he's dinged up, he can go out there and play. He's 30 years old. He's supposed to be in the prime of his career, right? Especially considering he's a receiver that's not known for his speed. He's not one of these guys who, well, you know, when he hits the fill-in-the-blank age, he's going to lose a step. No, he's never been a fast guy. His skill set has always been possession receiver, red zone target. He'll out-jump somebody. He's got great hands. That's always been his forte. So, it's not like his age should be a problem. But we are already heading into this Thursday night game. And it's another excuse, it's another reason why this guy is not available. And it's starting to get fishy. It's starting to smell like something is bizarre going on here. Now, I've heard a lot of theories about this already, okay? I know the popular Twitter reaction is Alshon Jeffrey doesn't want to play football, he's just collecting a paycheck, okay? And I don't think it's that. I think that's a little ridiculous. I know that Hunter Brody brought up the point that, you know, maybe the Eagles have only kept him active on the roster so they can eventually trade him, which is also a possibility. Now, the only problem with the trade Alshon Jeffrey conversation is his contract. Because if you trade Alshon Jeffrey, okay? If you trade him, you're still on the hook for some of his money. You're still on the hook for about $5.5 million of dead money. It's a cap savings. Yes, you're going to save some money in the long run. But it's still going to be a cap hit. So it's not like it's going to be all's well that ends well financially if you're planning on trading him. And I'm not saying Howie Roseman can't figure out the numbers because that's what his expertise is. But trading him is not as simple as just trading him because, one, you got to find a team that's willing to take him on. And number two, you got to be willing to make sure that Jeffrey Lurie knows he's signing off on a deal that's still going to leave the Eagles on hook for some money, some serious money. We're not talking about $500,000 or $900,000. No, we're talking about millions, plural, dollars for a team that's already got a lot of salary cap questions moving forward for the next few years. So, what is the reason why Alshon Jeffrey can't be out there? Is it that he tried to come back too soon? He keeps having setbacks? There has to be a reason why this guy is constantly not available. And frankly, I'm getting tired of talking about him. I'm tired of seeing video of him at practice. I'm tired of hearing about, Alshon practiced again today. Doesn't even matter anymore. He's not playing. Is he ever going to play? I don't know. At this point, I wonder if we will ever see Alshon Jeffrey in a Philadelphia Eagles uniform ever again. Because for whatever reason, whether it is legitimately a medical reason or there's some other bizarro reason why he's not playing, I think the team should just plan to not play without him ever again. Because if Deshaun Jackson plays on Thursday night, that means that Deshaun Jackson will have come back from more injuries in the last 12 months than Alshon Jeffrey. Just think about that for a hot minute. Game night here on 97.3 ESPN, of course, brought to you by Matt Black Kia. Matt Black Kia wants to get you approved today. That's Matt Black Kia, located on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. Coming up tonight on 97.3 ESPN coverage of Game 2 of the World Series. As I mentioned to Dave Weinberg earlier, I thought the Dodgers would lose last night because, Clayton Kershaw hasn't played well. That might be the best playoff game Clayton Kershaw's ever pitched. Dodgers went on the win. I mean, I still think the Dodgers win the series, but I just didn't expect them to win last night. But you know what? As I told you before, baseball is not... baseball is one of those sports that I've always enjoyed. It's the first sport I ever played as a kid, but let's be realistic. For me, baseball is it's like rolling dice at the crab table. That's what baseball is like for me. Thanks again to Dave Weinberg for joining us early on the show. I'm very interested to see where boxing goes from here because, anyone knows me, I'm a UFC guy. I'm a diehard MMA guy for a long time, but I've always enjoyed the sport known as the sweet science because there is a level of strategy and tactical nature that goes into that combat sport. And for me, watching that fight that night, there's a part of me that says, all right, now what? Now that Lopez and Loma, people wanted that fight for a while now. Lopez won, now what? I love Dave's idea they should run it back, but who knows if that'll actually happen because, as we said, with Loma injured, going to get surgery. Who knows when he'll be back?